Hey guys, LevelCap here. Today we're going to update on what's going on in the world of Battlefield. We've got the Phantom Bow, we've got some strong hints at new DLC in the near future, we've got some other cool stuff coming up in the CTE. And first things first, I'm sure everybody wants to get their cool Phantom Bow unlocked for the vanilla version of the game. You're going to need at least 3 other people to get this gun. You're going to have to put in a bit of work in terms of actually unlocking the other Phantom assignments in case you haven't already done that. If you want to know how to do that, I'm going to put the link in the video description to the Reddit post explaining that process. It's not quite as simple as one might think. Now, if you've been following along with the ESL 1 tournaments going on for BF4 right now, you might have caught a small interview with David Serlin where, although he doesn't confirm it by saying the word specifically, it seems pretty obvious that we're going to be getting some sort of new DLC for Battlefield 4 in the near future. If you've been following along with CTE, then it's pretty clear that they've already got different game modes planned for the future and a lot of patches coming up, and a lot of game fixes, so it only makes sense that there's probably some sort of expansion or new DLC involved with that process as well. I hope it's actually free to the public because it would be sort of a nice thank you to the Battlefield 4 community for sticking around this whole time, because the game has certainly gone through its fair share of growing pains. Now, since the release of Final Stand, we also got a nice bit of a patch for the game, and you might have not noticed some of the changes that came along with this patch. Some of them are pretty significant. One of the first ones is slightly more responsive hit indicators. This is actually pretty important because you gotta know if you hit somebody immediately when you fire the gun in this game. If you have a delayed hit indicator, that's gonna slow down your gameplay and ultimately make your strategies and just your combat a lot more sluggish. One of the more subtle changes that's actually going to affect gameplay more than you might think is the changes to the med bags and the first aid kit. So basically the big bag and the small bag for the assault class. These are the gadgets that heal your soldier in combat, mid-combat, usually allowing you to survive a lot longer, heal back up, and re-engage the enemy as fast as possible. The change that has occurred to these is that they will not heal you while you are suppressed. And that means if you start getting healed and then you get suppressed, they stop healing you. So this can actually make suppression a much more effective tactic, and it actually makes the support class, sniper classes, and any other class that's frankly good at suppressing targets much more useful. And it's going to be really cool not having to worry about somebody with a med bag at their feet all of a sudden able to tank a lot more hits during a firefight. If they're suppressed, they're not going to be healing during that firefight. This makes the tactic of throwing down a med bag at a corner before you peek it not quite so useful, because you're not going to start healing if somebody's shooting directly back at you. Ultimately, this should serve to make the assault class less overpowered in the front lines and kind of force you to take out your targets or get to a safe location before you can heal up quickly. Now, the CTE's got some cool changes in the works. It always kind of serves as a glimpse into the future of what Battlefield 4 may become, and there's some interesting changes. One of them is an attempt to fix the head glitch situation, hopefully completely. We'll see what it can do. Basically, when you ADS now in CTE, your soldier's going to stand a little bit higher and you're going to hold your gun closer to basically the level of your head. So you should be able to see muzzle flash when you're firing over an object, should be able to see the laser pointer when firing over an object, and basically more of your head and body is basically going to appear behind the object when you ADS. This should hopefully avoid the situation of only seeing somebody's forehead while they can see your entire body in return. Also, DICE LA is working on a new game mode. It's called Conquest Double Assault. Now, if you remember what Conquest Assault was, it was basically where one team always had a guaranteed spawn, a base if you will, and then there was a conquest map out there with like 7 capture points, and you would basically fight over it like any normal game of Conquest. The thing is one of those teams would not have a home base, so if the other team captured all the flags, they basically could cap out the enemy team and nobody could spawn if they didn't have any flags. What Conquest Double Assault is doing is basically applying this rule to both teams. So there's going to be a total of, I think, 3 capture points, and if you capture all 3 capture points, the enemy team will not be able to spawn. So it's going to be a much smaller map, a much smaller player base, and much more intense action. The game mode sounds like a lot of fun to me personally, and I'm very curious to see what kind of matchmaking system they come up with to try and balance this, because if you try and play play a game against an organized group of players as a bunch of randoms, you're pretty much going to lose every single time. So that's not going to be any fun. I hope they can find a matchmaking system that determines if people are joining as a group versus joining solo and matches them up accordingly. Now, one of the last things I want to bring up here is, rather than information, it's more of a question and something that we're going to have to deal with coming early next year, 2015, when Battlefield Hardline comes out. It's been made very clear that DICE plans on supporting Battlefield 4 through the launch of Battlefield Hardline, and with the information that we have today, it seems pretty clear that there's going to be some new DLC in the works for Battlefield 4 as well. There looks like they're planning on supporting the competitive game mode as well. So we're going to have an interesting situation of two development teams supporting two different Battlefield games at the same time, trying to promote both of them simultaneously. Naturally, they're going to take away from each other's success and certainly dividing the player base even further. So I guess my question to you guys is, do you think Battlefield Hardline and Battlefield 4 can exist at the same time, or does one game have to try and replace the other? Do we have a strong enough fan base and player base to support two types of Battlefield games very strongly at the same time? I know Battlefield 3 is still going pretty strong. It's very easy to find some good full servers of BF3, but certainly if you're looking for a very specific game mode of BF3, that can be very hard to find nowadays, and I feel like that might be a situation with not only Battlefield 4 but potentially Battlefield Hardline, since again we are going to be splitting the player base, and it's pretty clear that BF Hardline has its work cut out for it, since it's coming from an entirely new theme that the Battlefield franchise has never really seen. The fan base is without a doubt still quite skeptical of the game. Personally, I'm pretty excited to play Battlefield Hardline. I've played it quite extensively in its alpha version, and I think there's some game modes that are really going to surprise some people, but at the same time I am still a bit worried about the situation that's going to arise in the near future. I would be really interested to hear what you guys think about this whole situation. As always guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. This is LevelCap, signing off.